Welcome back to another episode of the Remade Life podcast. In this episode, I'm discussing the topic that I know so many people who experience autoimmune disease wonder. How can I exercise when I experience chronic pain? There are actually some simple ways that you can decrease your body's sensitivity to pain and increase your body's resilience to stress. I'm Coach Danny. Let's talk about it. Are you ready to rewrite your story and embrace a new perspective on healing autoimmune disease? Hey, I'm Daniela Spear, and I'm fascinated by exploring the human body, movement, and how emotions help to create our life's journey. After a transforming experience helped me to heal over 15 years of autoimmune symptoms, I decided to share what it looks like to have a second chance at a more compassionate relationship with my body. In this podcast, I will guide you in building lasting wellness by tapping into your body's innate wisdom, understanding the emotional roots of autoimmune disease, and how to use strength training not just for working out, but as a tool to heal from within. So get ready to revive your most inner joys, rebuild your health, and reclaim your life. This is the Remade Life podcast. Hello. I am very excited for this episode because I know it's a point of tension for so many people that experience autoimmune disease. On one hand, you know exercise is good for you, so you want to do it. On the other hand, chronic pain makes it difficult to exercise, so you don't. And then that just creates more chronic pain and inflammation. So what are we supposed to do? Well, first, let me just say I totally get it, okay? Exercising with achy fingers, shoulders, and aching back, overall general fatigue, no thank you. None of that sounds fun to me. Chronic pain is a very personal experience, and it's unique to each person that experiences it. And I don't love saying chronic pain is complicated. I know that that's a narrative that a lot of coaches and therapists and even doctors have. To me, saying that chronic pain is complicated feels like a way to just explain pain in a way so that we don't really have to explain it to people, right? As long as we keep saying it's complicated, then we excuse ourselves from really having to interact with it, right? Because things that are complicated, we just kind of shove to the side. But actually, interacting with your pain, befriending your pain, is how we change our relationship to it, our experience with it, and even our actual experience of having chronic pain. So while yes, chronic pain is a very complex experience psychologically, physically, emotionally, socially, I do believe that we can start to change and do a better job of changing the narrative about how we talk about pain. It doesn't have to be complicated. I think for anyone that experiences pain, you know that the pain fluctuates. It's not the same every day. And because of that, we know that there are periods of time, days, weeks, months maybe, where the chronic pain isn't so debilitating. And so we can't just say, oh, chronic pain just has a mind of its own. No, we experience pain because we have a nervous system that works. And maybe it's a very dysregulated and overwhelmed nervous system, but it's one that is working nonetheless. And because we know that pain can fluctuate, then we have to ask ourselves, how can we prolong and lengthen the days where the chronic pain is less? And maybe not focus so much on getting rid of it completely. Yes, that is possible, of course, because the brain has tremendous potential for change. But I think approaching chronic pain in the same way that I approach autoimmune flare-ups is more sustainable. So instead of trying to just get rid of them altogether, seek first to reduce chronic pain and then seek to lengthen the time between flare-ups And in doing so, you learn a lot about yourself in the process, like what triggers your flare-ups, what triggers your pain, how do you relate to stress, how do you relate to your symptoms, to your pain, and what works for you in the healing process. And actually, that whole part of like learning about yourself is, in my opinion, one of the most important things that you can do to change your relationship to pain. But anyways, that's all a side note, just to say, like, let's start paying attention to how we speak about our experience with chronic pain. Like, do we say it's complicated? Do we believe it's complicated? And therefore there's no way to address it? Or do we believe it's a process that the body's experiencing? Do we believe that we have influence over how and when we experience pain? And because everyone experiences it so differently, like, there's no way that in this episode that I can give everyone an absolute answer for how to exercise while you experience chronic pain. But what I can do is share the things that have worked for me, that have worked for my clients, and can help you have just a better experience with exercise. So what I'm sharing today is not guaranteed to get rid of pain, but rather to help you shift your experience with pain. It can certainly help decrease your pain and get you to a place where you can explore and interact with your pain on a different level, which in turn can help you relieve chronic pain. So my personal experience with chronic pain has not ever been something that's just like ongoing, but something that comes and goes. For me, it has most commonly shown up in like my fingers, my wrists, and shoulders. So like more like my upper body. And when it comes up, like, it's because I have probably neglected some boundaries, have neglected self-care, and I'm overloaded, whether it's from work, overcommitting to social gatherings, or just had a really busy mind. So that is kind of like with autoimmune symptoms, how chronic pain has shown up for me. It's kind of just been this ebb and flow, this thing that, comes and goes. And also for maybe the last 5-6 years, I've also dealt with this chronic shoulder pain that isn't necessarily autoimmune related, but I am not sure if I had an injury or if it just was years of poor movement patterns. But I mean, that is kind of how chronic pain shows up. There's not like this initial like event, like there's not a moment where you like hurt yourself and you know that that's the moment that your pain started. Chronic pain is something that sort of kind of just starts to like slowly like creep in, and before you know it, it's there. But I've gone to like countless physical therapy appointments, massage therapy. I've consulted with different movement professionals, and I've explored the emotional root cause of my shoulder pain. I've looked into it all, right? And everything has helped, and at the same time, like, nothing has made it completely go away. But I will say that what I'm sharing in this episode has been a huge help in terms of decreasing chronic pain that is autoimmune related and pain for my shoulder. And my shoulder has gotten a lot better in recent years, but it still flares up from time to time. So, okay, you're all listening because you're wondering, how do I exercise with chronic pain? If you are looking for like the best 5 exercises to reduce chronic pain, they are, just kidding. You're not going to find that here. Why? Because there is no one right formula for this. And what I will share are things that invite you more so to explore you and explore your body and how it responds to changes in sensory input. So I know, like I really do wish that I could just give you the best 5 exercises and just like be on my way. Like when I was a lot more involved with the lupus community, like that was the question that I always got. What are like the best 5 exercises for lupus? And I was like, I don't understand that question. You want 5 exercises that help like promote lupus or like get rid of lupus? And like there's no like, you don't do squats and it goes away. Like it, it was always just such a weird question from my background and understanding. And granted, I got what people were saying and what they were asking. It was like, if you have lupus, what are the best exercises to support your body and health? And I got that, but I think for me it was always just like a very interesting question, because it was like, well, what do I tell you? Like, do some lunges, and like all of the exercises are great, because when you have a disease that is very degenerative for connective tissue, building all of your connective tissue is great, and that's like all the exercises. So yeah, I cannot give you the best 5 exercises, but trust me, learning to have a better interaction and a relationship with your body, that is what will help you long term. And that is what I'm here to do. I'm here to help you, to help yourself. So let's get into it. Okay. Number 1, assess your threat bucket. Okay, so the threat bucket is an analogy from neurology. That's kind of tough to say. Analogy from neurology. There's a lot of ologies in there, but okay, it's an analogy used to help you understand how your nervous system works, because pain is felt in the nervous system. And I know that we often describe pain for where we feel it, like my back hurts, my hands hurt, my head hurts. Like, yes, that is the location of where it hurts, but you feel it there because of the nervous system being there. Without the nervous system, like, you wouldn't feel anything. So the threat bucket, imagine a bucket, right? And this bucket is your nervous system. Okay. So over the course of your life, this bucket gets filled with quote unquote water, which is like all of your life's experiences. So for example, unresolved emotions from your childhood, foot injury when you were 15 and it was not well rehabbed, poor sleep habits, like an argument you just had with your partner, like all of these things go into your bucket. Like the cold you had, the chicken pox from kindergarten, the traumatic experience of not being able to go on your class field trip, I don't know, whatever, like it's all very personal to you, your life and your experiences, but it all goes in this threat bucket, right? And so as all of these threats, so to speak, to the brain fill up your bucket, eventually it gets so full that it spills over. And that is what causes your body to experience symptoms like pain, inflammation, and fatigue. So like the chronic things, right? It's not just one thing that happens. It's like all of these life experiences that were maybe not dealt with the best that have stayed in your bucket and have filled it up to the point where it overflows and spills. And that is when you experience symptoms. So in general, the body is quite resilient and is constantly compensating for threats in the environment, which is a good thing. The problem is when your body loses that ability to compensate, and that's when you experience the chronic symptoms. So all of your life experiences play a role in how your body responds to the demands placed on it. And even if you can point to definitive causes of pain, if you can say like, oh, I did hurt my shoulder in a car accident, right? Having a full threat bucket will still increase your sensitivity to pain. And so where you have that injury, if you also have a full threat bucket, that place where you had the injury, you're going to experience a lot more pain and at a lot higher frequency. So the threat bucket has like really helped me to see that when I experience symptoms, like it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with me or anything wrong with my body. Like rather it is more of an invitation into a conversation with my body on how I can support it. And I will do sort of like a self-assessment of like, okay, what is in my threat bucket? And you can do a threat bucket assessment for any like period of time. So you can do one for across your entire life, or maybe just this past year or this last week. Oftentimes when I experience like a flare up of autoimmune symptoms, like my fingers will start hurting, I will just kind of do an assessment, like, okay, well, how's my sleep been? How's my workload been? How have my conversations been with my husband? How have my conversations been with myself? How is my nutrition? Have I been hydrating? Right? All of these things that play a role in my body experiencing pain, I assess. And to me, that helps me to remove the blame from myself and my body and not get frustrated at my body. Because if I can do this assessment and say, like, okay, like all of these things are contributing to me experiencing pain right now, like then I say that makes sense, rather than like, I don't understand why I always have this pain. Instead, I move to a place of like, okay, that makes sense. And it's a bit more gentle approach and one that is more compassionate. So I wrote an ebook about all of this. It's called Unlocking Your Body Secrets, a guide to understanding your emotions and healing chronic symptoms. And in that book, there is a worksheet where you can write out all of the things in your personal threat bucket. And this is not going to definitively point to like the one thing that is the source of your pain. Like rather, it helps you see that multiple factors do contribute to chronic pain. And if you can tangibly see like all of the unresolved things that you have in your threat bucket, like you can start to address and like plan for how to like start, addressing and pulling some of those things out and eliminating them from your threat bucket. And as you do, like there's like space created in your bucket, and your sensitivity to that pain decreases, right? That threshold is higher because there's just more capacity in your bucket to hold once you start taking some of those things out. So you can download my ebook at the link provided in the show notes. And as I am recording this, it has officially had 98 downloads since I released it. So who is going to be lucky number 100? Is it you? I hope so. But hopefully it surpasses 100 downloads, because I was just looking through it and I was like, dang, this is some good information. Like, I need to go back through it for myself, which is how you know it's good information. It's like the author, the person that wrote it, goes back and like reapplies it again and again. And I like often like reassess my threat bucket on sometimes a weekly basis. So don't wait another second. Make sure you download it and use it as a resource for your healing journey. All right, number 2, sensory input. So changing sensory input is another way that you can decrease chronic pain so that you can have a better experience with exercise. So the way that the brain works is the brain receives an input, right? So any kind of information from your environment, and it processes that information and it makes a decision of whether this information is like helpful or not helpful. And then based on that information, it creates an output, right? So pain is actually an output of the brain when it experiences a lack of safety, a lack of understanding, or just any kind of uncertainty. Uncertainty is like the most dangerous thing to the brain. Like the brain does not like to have uncertainty. It doesn't like to not know. Actually, just this week at school, at massage therapy school, we were talking about the eyes, which funny enough is kind of like the first point of all of this. But we were talking about the eyes, and we were talking about how like all of us have this blind spot And we did this like really cool exercise with like, it was like a worksheet and like a dot and an X. And if you move it to a certain like spot, like you lose sight of the X, and like that is your blind spot. And so like we all have a blind spot for each eyeball. It has something to do with the structure of the eyeball. Don't ask me to further explain that, but it's just something with the structure and like the rods and cones. I don't know. That might be wrong, but something with the eye that we all have a blind spot. And so your brain actually fills in that information. So it's like, if we have this blind spot, why don't we see the blind spot in front of us? And like, because what we see in front of us looks like a complete picture, but it's actually like not really there. I mean, it is there, but like our brain doesn't actually see it. So your brain fills in that information. So your brain, when there is uncertainty or something that it doesn't see, like it will create that image to reduce uncertainty. So it's kind of wild. The brain is just, it is amazing. It's so wild to like study the brain. But anyways, going back to, okay, your brain receives an input, it processes it, makes a decision about it, and creates an output. Pain is an output of the brain. And if you want to change the output, you have to change the input. And so there's 3 ways to change sensory input. And number 1 is eye exercises. So that's why I said, funny enough, you know, the eyes are the first point to this. So eye exercises, like, yes, literally move your eyeballs. So for the brain, vision, aka the eyes, are like the most important sensory organ when it comes to receiving information, receiving input. Like, we observe our environment with our eyes, and it is like the top dog in terms of sensory input. So first it's vision, then it's the vestibular system, so like where you are in space, and then it's your proprioceptive system, so your actual body. Most often when we think about like how we experience pain, it's like because our body is hurting, right? Like when we experience pain, it's somewhere in the body. But you really have to take a step back here and say, okay, pain is a sensory experience. I feel it because it's in my nervous system. And if I'm feeling it in my body, it's not necessarily something that is wrong with my body, except in the case of acute injuries. So as I was saying earlier, like if you have an acute injury, like you know exactly how you got hurt, and like you literally broke a bone or something, and so you know you can point to where that pain came from. But in the case of chronic pain, it's like usually like an onset that is relatively unknown, and it's sort of kind of gradual and slowly increases. But if you're feeling pain or tension in the body, you have to check the eyeballs. Why? Because more often than not, pain in the body is a result of a dysfunction higher up in like that hierarchy of safety. So your eyes, your vision, and your vestibular system. So you have to check the eyes, you have to check the vestibular system, because when the body's experiencing dysregulation, it is because there is already dysregulation in those higher up systems. But the eyes are the best place to begin to change your experience with pain, because your cranial nerves for the eyes, so cranial nerve 2, the optic nerve, cranial nerve 3, the oculomotor nerve, and cranial nerve number 4, the trochlear nerve, all go to the brainstem. I mean, all 12 of your cranial nerves go to the brainstem, but these are the specific ones for the eyes that we're talking about today. They all go to the brainstem, which is where you have literal built-in pain-relieving receptors that are called nociceptors. I know that like all those words just sound very like scientific, and if you know me like that, I'm not like the most scientific person in terms of like sharing information. Like I'm usually like, I feel this, so it must be true. Right? But when I like share about how the body, like when I share about anatomy and like how the body's structured and the way it functions, the physiology of the body, like it always blows my mind just how like what a genius creation the body is. Like we have literal built-in pain relieving receptors. And all you have to do is like move your eyeballs to activate them. Like, isn't that wild? Like, where was this information 15, 16 years ago, right? Like when I was first experiencing an onset of autoimmune symptoms, like I wish I had known that I could create safety in my body by like moving my eyeballs. It's so wild. But okay, moving the eyes like stimulates those receptors in the brainstem. So eye exercises will stimulate the nociceptors that relieve pain and help to reduce your sensitivity to pain. So, okay, you might be thinking like, okay, well, how do I move my eyes? Okay, if you are on Instagram, you have to go check out my friend and mentor, Missy Bunch. I will link her Instagram channel or her Instagram profile in the show notes. Like, you have to go check out her content. I would love to have her on the podcast as a guest once I figure out how to best record with guests. So like I'm still learning how to do this whole podcast thing, But the best ones and the most simple ones that she teaches are the eye circles and the pencil push-ups. So the eye circles, so you would take either like a pen or maybe just like your thumb, hold it out like arm's length out in front of you. And then you would draw a circle like while focusing in on the tip of the pen or the tip of your thumb. You would draw a circle and then your eyes would just follow your thumb as it moves in like a big circle around your head, right? And then you would maybe do a couple reps, like 3 to 5 in one direction, 3 to 5 in the other. And that just helps to strengthen the eye movement in all the directions. And then pencil push-ups is when you hold a pencil out, arm's length out in front of you, and you kind of align the tip of the pencil with the tip of your nose, and then you bring the pencil in towards your nose and your eyes follow it so they converge together. So it's kind of like the whole like cross-eyed thing, like they move in, so that you're like staring at the tip of the pen or pencil when it's right at your nose, and then you move it out, and so then they like your eyeballs diverge from each other, they move away, and you do that for 3 to 5 reps as well. So eye circles, pencil push-ups. I need to do some quick videos of these for Instagram and for YouTube, but like for now, go check out Missy Bunch. She is the best resource for eye exercises and brain-based movement. Okay, so part 2 of changing sensory input is assessing your breathing pattern. So go ahead, take a deep breath in and let it out. So where did that breath land? Is it more like the center of your chest? Is it high up on your chest? Or was it like more of a 360 movement around the rib cage? If you are more of like a chest breather and like a shoulder breather, like your shoulders like really move up when you take a breath in, you, my friend, have poor breathing patterns. I'm sorry to tell you. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but it's best that you know, okay? Poor breathing patterns when we breathe with our chest rather than the diaphragm contribute to an increased sensitivity to pain because a lack of oxygen, it suffocates your cells, including your brain and nerve cells, which that sends a signal of panic to the brain, and it creates panic in the body, and that increases your pain signals, right? Obviously, this is not like a traumatic suffocation, but more of like a low grade, like essentially undetected suffocation for a very long period of time that your cells experience. And over time, like the lack of oxygen to the cells like really inhibits their function. And that creates a lack of safety in the body, and that creates pain, right? It increases that sensitivity to pain. So Some movements that are helpful to improve your breathing pattern are movements that are focused on thoracic mobility. So something like cat-cow, if any of you have done yoga before, it's when you are on all fours, you're kind of like on hands and knees. But you can actually do cat-cow seated or standing, but because you're like moving more so through your thoracic spine, so like your mid back, essentially you kind of like push your chest forward as you breathe in. So if you're like on all fours, you are allowing your chest to open up. You kind of let your belly drop, your head lifts, you take a breath in, and then on the exhale, you round through your spine. You pull that rib cage in, you kind of tuck your tailbone, your head drops, and you kind of repeat, right? You inhale, exhale. Arm sweeps, you are laying on your side and you take your top arm and you reach forward and up and over. If you are a client of mine, you know I love arm sweeps. Like that is one of my just favorite go-to exercises for improving thoracic mobility. And something like spinal rolls, like you can do spinal rolls from like child's pose. You can kind of like move into like a rounded spine and then push your hips forward into an upward facing jog. Or you can start in a standing position. You sort of tuck your chin down, roll your shoulders forward, and kind of aim to roll down one vertebrae at a time. Also like lateral bends, bending side to side, or just like any rotational movement, maybe like a seated twist, right? Where you can hold and breathe in that twisted position. It helps to improve thoracic mobility. It helps to give some more feedback to the diaphragm. It helps to stimulate the area where the diaphragm lives, because the diaphragm can get stuck and kind of sluggish in movement from a lack of movement, which is going to decrease your breathing quality. So any kind of movement that moves the spine, that moves through the middle of the spine where the diaphragm is going to help to improve your breathing and your posture, right? So I said posture, so everyone kind of just sit up right now, right? So paying attention to your breath and your breathing pattern. And then the third part of skin stimulation is literally rubbing the area where you feel pain. And like, you know, as kids, when we like fall or like hit something, we like immediately grab it. Like this is a very instinctive response to pain. We grab it, we touch it, we provide it sensory feedback. But as adults, like we try to be tough and act like things don't hurt us. So we like stop. We like intentionally stop. At some point, we intentionally stop acting out of instinct, and we like don't grab or touch where it is we hurt. So increasing sensory feedback to that corresponding area of the brain is going to help decrease the pain sensation in the body. So if you can increase brain activity to that area of the body, you decrease the pain. So remember that pain can come from uncertainty, and what people with chronic pain often don't realize is that they experience pain because of a dissociation with their body. It is like we neglect our body and then we experience pain. But bringing attention back to it can help quiet the pain. So like I understand why it is difficult to like want to interact with a body that just hurts all the time. And so what we often do is inhibit our healing of chronic pain by neglecting it, by not wanting to interact with it, because we're frustrated of how much pain we're experiencing. And I get it. Like I really do. Everything that I share on this podcast is because I've experienced it myself. So I'm sharing this because it has helped me, it has helped my clients, is that connecting back with the body helps to reduce that experience of pain. So like from a literal sense, like you rub that area, you warm up the tissue. So like if your ankle hurts, rub around your ankle, rub your foot, kind of rub up your shin, right? You warm up the tissues around the area where you feel pain, and then reassess how you feel. Like If your whole body hurts, like rub your entire body. Actually, what is a really good exercise that I learned from Missy Bunch was rubbing like one side of the body. So like if you like use your right hand to like rub, your entire left side of the body, you like rub your left arm, like the left side of your trunk, your left hip, your left leg, all the way down to your left foot. Like do that and then take a moment, like close your eyes and really feel the difference between the left side that you just rubbed and the right side that you haven't rubbed. And it is an incredible difference. Like it feels refreshed, it feels good. So literally rubbing an area of the body changes the sensory input to that body. But on a more metaphorical level, like that is like a little interacting with the pain. You are reconnecting with your body. You're giving your body attention, and that helps to desensitize you to the pain. So both on a literal level and a metaphorical level, change the sensory information to the brain, which changes the output of the brain. So remember, sensory information goes into the brain processes it, makes a decision about it, and then sensory information out. So if you can sort of like reconnect that area of your body to your brain, there's less uncertainty, there's less unsafety or danger, and then there will be less pain. Another practice that is actually like really good for this is called body mapping. I learned this from my friend Tiffany from Dance Brave. I will link her profile, her Instagram profile in the show notes as well. She is like the queen of embodying emotions and like moving that energy to heal pain. And what you do is sort of start at your head and you literally like imagine your body being like planet Earth, and you were like feeling around like the different like crevices, like textures, like the bumpy landmarks, the soft areas of your body, like every part of your body you like run your hands through. And it is such a cool experience, and it was something that like really helped me develop a more loving relationship with the body that I have. It was just like interacting and like really feeling the like makeup of my body, the actual physical makeup of my body. So go check out Tiffany as well. She is just so good at like helping you like embody things that you feel and like move energy to release it. She's wonderful. So, okay, 3 things of changing sensory input: eye exercises, assess your breathing and thoracic mobility, and skin stimulation. Okay. But the third point of all this is gentle movement, implementing gentle movement. So the big point with this is learning to manage your expectations and being okay and consistent with less. So managing your expectations for what exercise looks for you as you work on your relationship with chronic pain. And before your mind goes to like, it's chronic pain, it doesn't go away. Like yes, it absolutely can. There's a book called The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge. I will also provide a link to that. It's a really, really good book on how the brain can rewire itself in a way that how it functions, and in the way that we experience pain in the world and how we interact with other people in the world around us. Like it is like has some really cool stories, and just also like the science behind how the brain changes itself. It's really cool. So knowing that the brain can change, we take a different approach to chronic pain, right? And we have a little bit more patience with our body. We have more patience with our expectations of what exercise needs to look like. So maybe for you right now, exercise does not look like weight training. Maybe exercise does not look like running outside. Maybe it doesn't look like going to group fitness classes. Maybe to you, exercise looks like stretching in bed. And I want you to know that that is enough. Maybe it looks like going outside for a walk, and that is enough. Maybe it looks like movement in the pool or water to help support your achy joints, and that is enough. Maybe you are doing seated yoga, and that is enough. Okay. I am giving you a lot of people that I have learned from in today's episode, but I've learned from a lot of amazing people and being able to bring all this information together to you. But another friend and mentor of mine, Erica Webb, her focus is on kindness and self-compassion, and she teaches very gentle movement of like to help you create a home in your body. And just the way that she teaches is just very unique, as she just combines that gentle movement with the self-compassion and kindness that we all need. So also go check out her Instagram profile. I'm like sending you all to Instagram a lot today, but I want you all to have the best resources and know that it is very possible to change your relationship to pain, and I'm giving you all the resources that have significantly helped me. So just knowing, believing, and trusting that what you do for movement right now, that is enough, and trust that it is working. Even if it doesn't look like where you would ideally like to be, where you are now, managing those expectations for what exercise and movement looks like right now is important. It is important to trust that it is working while you assess your relationship with chronic pain. So it's kind of like the two work in tandem, because the more that we avoid pain, like the more that it lingers, but the more that we interact with it, we acknowledge it, we welcome it, like the more that it settles. And I know it's so strange to say welcome pain, like that sounds really weird to say, right? But what I mean is that by welcoming pain, we validate it, right? We let it know that it is valid for being there. Instead of trying to get rid of it, we start to develop a relationship with it. We interact with it, whatever the pain is. And I guess this whole episode, I've really been focused on like physical pain, but emotional pain can be just as debilitating sometimes, but it is also valid. It is valid too. And so one of my philosophies on healing autoimmune disease, and it's something that the more I learn about the connection between the body, the mind, the spirit, like, is that the relationship you have with yourself and with your body is the most important factor in healing autoimmune disease, in healing chronic pain, and healing whatever you're experiencing. And that is the whole point. That is the whole point to Remade Wellness. It's the whole point to a remade life, is allowing yourself that second or third or fourth or fifth chance, how many ever you need, to develop a deep, intentional, and meaningful relationship with yourself, because that is where the healing happens. But okay, I have talked long enough, and this was just like a very exciting episode for me to record. I love talking about the possibilities that already exist within the body to change your experiences to dis-ease. So, I mean, yeah, like I think everything I shared today, the assessing your threat bucket, changing sensory input through eye exercises, your breathing patterns, and skin stimulation, and then also incorporating gentle movement and managing your expectations to pain, like none of that was about going out and buying any kind of supplement or buying anything, right? All of this is things that you have accessible to you, things that already exist within the body to change your experience to pain, to change your experience to dis-ease. Because I want you all to see that You are all healers. You are all capable of healing, and you have what you need to heal already within you. You just need to learn how to use the tools correctly, right? So I hope that this was helpful for you. And as a reminder, make sure you download the ebook, my ebook, The Unlocking Your Body's Secrets, a guide to understanding your emotions and healing chronic symptoms. And that link is provided in the show notes. So until next time, my friends, be well.